Good afternoon to the members of the Judiciary Committee, Chairman Staffstrom, Chairman Winfield. My name is Peter Strada. I'm the Urban Engagement Coordinator with the CCDL. I'm also a resident of Hamden, Connecticut. Today, I'm here to ask everyone to oppose SB16, an act addressing gun violence and juvenile crime. Just so you know, I have spent many hours trying to take the time to try to understand what's being proposed in the bill. I was speechless to what I have found. Majority of what is in this bill, I believe, is an attack to the people in my community. I cannot see how, in order to reduce gun violence and juvenile crime, the answer is to open up the floodgates and allow law enforcement officers to stop and detain people of color for no probable cause. Why would anyone want to legalize a tactic that police officers have a long history of abusing? And I don't know of anyone that would want to be subjected to that type of treatment. I ask, who will be impacted by this type of law? Will be people in my community, people of color, Black, Latino. How, in order to reduce gun violence and juvenile crime, the proposal is not to allow legally permitted firearm owners to ride the public transit. How does that reduce any crime whatsoever? And who is this going to impact the most? Affect them the most will be people from my community that depend on taking transit, taking the bus. A lot of our people in our community cannot just afford a car. You know, we don't just have that luxury. I do, but I'm not speaking for me. I'm speaking for those that can't afford a vehicle and they have to ride public transit. So I got to ask, in order to reduce gun violence and juvenile crime, how is it that having and banning people that are legally carrying a firearm within 250 feet of a protest, sit-in and march or gathering, just because 15 people or more are together, how does any of that reduce crime? So I started to ask myself, why is this? Why now? Why is this happening? Why these type of bills are coming before us? And then I started doing some research. What happened recently within Connecticut? And what I found and I remembered was a year ago, I believe it was 2021 to 2020, a group of Black and Latinos decided to march for Second Amendment rights in the city of Hartford. And I wonder, is that the reason why they don't want people to carry legally in a group setting? So today I'm here to ask every member of the Judiciary Committee to please vote no because of the impact that it could have on the members of my community.
Thank you. Representative Jablonski.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And thank you, Mr. Estrada, for coming in and testifying today. A couple of areas of SB16 I wanted to ask you about. You'd mentioned how you thought you asked sort of rhetorically how banning the carrying of firearms on a bus or a train would affect the people of your community. And I, rather than have you ask rhetorically, I'd like you to tell me, how would this affect people in your community that can't afford a car or choose not to have a car, and their right to protect themselves in their communities? You're muted, Mr. Estrada.
I was muted. I apologize. Thank you, Representative Jablonski. Past few days, I've been having a conversation with friends and family in regards to what's happening in this bill. And I read the bill. It's a little bit complicated trying to learn all the language, but what my takeaway was just pretty much what I spoke on. And the impact is, it's not more of when you're on the bus, the walking to the bus, maybe you don't live in an area that is, more affluent where you don't have to worry about crime. But for those individuals that live in those towns, that have to get to the bus, maybe there is a spike in crime. What do? They have to stay home, So how do they travel if there's a spike in crime? How do they protect themselves? And I don't understand. I remember early on, I've been watching since the beginning when they were asking the commissioner. I'm not sure if I remember it was you, but I don't know of any crimes being committed on public transit. I haven't heard of it. And I'm sure if there was these type of crimes being committed, it would be all over the news, and I just haven't seen it. So why is it that these type of bills are impacting the minority community? First we're going with delays in the urban cities in processing, These fees just to submit applications to even get a permit is outrageous. To have to spend $220 to exercise a constitutional right that everyone claims to support, to say, everyone loves to say I'm a supporter of Second Amendment, but we should have restrictions. But I don't think the restrictions should come with a fee. If I'm going to get a permit, then give it to me for free. Are we going to start charging fees for the right to vote, to get a voter ID? This is just the type of things where I think I don't want to say members of this legislature really want to discriminate directly, but it's just, you got to ask the question, why is this happening now? We have had, I believe last year, over 6,000 Black people get a pistol permit. Thousands of Latinos last year got pistol permits. And as a result, what happened? Delays. City of New Haven, to submit a pistol permit application, you have to wait a year almost just to hand in an application. How is that fair? A city that has how many Black and Latinos that live in that city? Waterbury, Bridgeport, Hartford, urban areas, all delaying people in the minority community. Why? I don't know. You got to ask that question. Why is that happening? And no one's speaking up. I've been trying to contact my legislators to bring them, to make them aware of what's happening, but no one responds. No one responds. The only one that responded is my organization, Connecticut Citizens Defense League. Had to take them to federal court with a civil rights lawsuit to get them to do their job. I'm sorry, I apologize. Someone did respond. The mayor of New Haven, who then was upset that the police department was being sued to do their job. That's outrageous. Wasn't upset that they have delays, upset that they're being sued to do their jobs because the people in the community can't get a pistol permit. They have to wait over a year.
Okay, there's another provision that I'd like to ask you about. I assume because you're in the car, you don't have the bill in front of you, but in lines 292 and 293 of SB16, the proposal is to remove the requirement that a police officer has a reasonable suspicion of a crime, a reasonable suspicion that a individual has committed a crime before they can stop them and demand to see a pistol permit. How do you think that will affect your communities?
Well, how has it affected our communities over the years since the 90s? I grew up in New York. It was common practice for law enforcement just to grab Hispanic and Black kids and throw them against the wall just to search them. It was common practice. That's that's the environment I grew up in. For doing nothing except walking from work, coming out the train station to the project building I live in, to have the police officers just to run up on you, stop you, and say, "Hey, any guns or drugs on you?" What is that? And that's not even with probable cause. That's not even me carrying a gun. That's just because they wanted to do it. Now, amplify that with having a firearm. Now, people like to say, just show them the permit. What's the big deal? Look at what happened with Philando Castillo a few years ago with his girlfriend that live streamed the event after the fact. He got pulled over, right? It looked like a legit stop. The car light, brake light was out. Police officer, no problem. Hey, you got pulled over for the light. He did the right thing, like everyone would like us to do. Hey, you know what, officer? I have a permit. I'm legally carrying. Do have my firearm on me. That's what he tells the officer. Officer says, hey, don't worry. Don't touch it. No problem. I won't. How is it about 3 seconds later, the officer's putting 7 bullets into him? And the last words out of his dying mouth was, I wasn't reaching for my gun. I can't imagine that happening here. Well, actually, I could imagine because it has happened, but this is insane. Why would you want to remove probable cause to stop and detain people? I don't understand what people are thinking. That makes absolutely no sense. Do we not have rights? Why would I want to give away my rights? That makes no sense to me.
And the other one that I wanted to ask you about was we already talked about public transportation. How would it affect the minority communities in this state to ban possession of a firearm at a demonstration, march, rally, vigil, sit-in, protest, picketing, or similar public assembly.
And who's to define what's a similar public assembly? So if I'm around with 15 of my friends, if the muzzle of my pistol happens to peek out, or the officer just can say, hey, I saw his gun. Let me stop and detain these people. Let me arrest this person. To me, all I see this as loopholes to arrest us. It's not, this has nothing to do with reducing gun crime. If it was, I want to hear it. I want to be a part of the solution. But how does arresting someone for having a gun legally, after you obtain a permit, purchased it, went through the whole background check, and then to be able to then arrest them? To me, all I see is a bunch of loopholes to actually put people in jail. I'm sorry, I thought the past couple of years we were working on not putting people in jail, trying to find out solutions to the people in my community. But then when it comes to firearms, you know what? Let's put them in jail. That makes absolutely no sense to me.
Well, I very much appreciate you coming in. Your testimony is certainly well taken, and I appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.